evening to those whom I have not yet had the opportunity to meet and greet. Allow me to briefly explain the idea behind this project. This project, which consists of commenting on Kahlil Gibran's work chapter by chapter, was conceived precisely because here in Brasilia, we have someone who has the remarkable habit of reciting, believe it or not, almost the entire book from memory. She recites it with extraordinary skill, once listening to a passage from Gibran being recited, and I thought, well, everyone finds it beautiful, but do we truly grasp all the nuances and underlying meanings? Because Gibran condenses so much meaning into such a small space, and he weaves so many layers between the lines. He is so profound that if we only listen superficially, it is as if we experience a two-dimensional Gibran, and we need to engage in reflection to create that third dimension. That is the essence of Gibran. Every poet, every true poet, because nowadays we often misuse that word, don't we? Every true poet carries something of philosophy within them. If you read some works by Fernando Pessoa, you will find this. If you come across anything by Cecilia Meirelles, you will also find it there, and Gibran is not only no exception, he is, in fact, the most typical example I know. He is a philosopher, we could certainly describe him that way. And The Prophet, which is a very famous book, translated into 40 languages around the world, is, incredibly, one of the most popular poems of humanity today. And I would even dare to say that it is perhaps one of the most beautiful. But when we pause to read between the lines, we realize just how complex it truly is. And when we listen to it superficially, caught up in the emotion of hearing a poem, sometimes we simply find it beautiful. But we don't always have much time to reflect, to digest it piece by piece. So, the idea is that, by the end of this talk, a brief talk, we will open up for questions, and we will have experienced a bit of Gibran in 3 dimensions. Notice these philosophical nuances that exist within his work. I always begin every talk by briefly mentioning a bit of the biography, though that is not the main focus. Gibran was Lebanese. He was born in Lebanon in 1893, and he passed away in the United States in 1931. He arrives in the United States with his family, in the city of Chicago. That's where they settle. He and his older brother, who was the head of the family, supported everyone, their mother and 2 sisters. It was a very delicate situation, because they did not speak the language. They had little professional training. The brother worked hard to support the family, and suddenly, one by one, they began to pass away. The brother dies of tuberculosis, the youngest sister also from tuberculosis, the mother passes away from heart disease, and only he and one sister remain, Mary, who works as a seamstress and helps support the 2 of them. And he, a genius, already possessed remarkable talent, both in writing and in painting. He was also a great painter. I'm not sure if you knew that. But now, to write in Lebanese, in the United States? And there, with all that talent, without even having many material resources, perhaps he would not have stayed in the United States. If he hadn't found a guardian angel, an American teacher, good evening, a North American teacher who met him when he was very young, newly arrived in the United States, with only a few years of residence there, and she began to support him, truly supporting him financially, and helped him practically throughout his entire life. When Gibran passed away in 1931, she was still supporting him in a certain way. This is quite an interesting thing. It's a story in itself, which I have been sharing. I've been spreading the word everywhere, because who knows, maybe one day we'll give this lecture here, since there is a book called The Love Letters of the Prophet, which are the letters he exchanged with this young woman, Mary Elizabeth Haskell, throughout his life. 600 letters from one side, 600 replies from the other. In other words, 1,200 letters, a whole lifetime. There was a profound love between the 2 of them, and it is very interesting to notice this. At a certain point, he proposes marriage to her, but she prefers not to. The 2 of them remain in contact, seeing each other only occasionally. But she inspired him in everything he did. In the letters exchanged between them, you can witness the birth of the Prophet, for example. She was as brilliant as he was. She lived much longer than he did. He passed away in the 1960s, while she died in 1931. And she only authorized the publication of these letters after her own death. By then, the Prophet was already famous worldwide, and she declined to claim any credit for it. If these letters had become known while she was alive, she too would have become famous. Yet she chose to remain in the background. She truly lifted him up, and much of what you see in Gibran carries the influence of Mary Haskell behind it. A remarkable woman and a love that ran very deep. Imagine 2 people who love each other, exchanging letters, spending a long time without seeing each other in person. What do you think these letters would be about? They talk about God, they talk about wisdom, about inner life. Their interests were very elevated, truly transcendent. At times, these do not seem like love letters, they read more like a treatise on philosophy. They never intended for them to be published, these were personal letters and were almost destroyed. Fortunately, they were not destroyed. So, this is something interesting, because beyond Gibran being the genius that he is, this is one of those cases that Plato would call soulmates. He had a wonderful relationship with this American lady, who was behind everything he became. In the end, he passed away in the United States in 1931. His body was taken back to Lebanon. Throughout his life, he deeply loved his homeland, yet he never had the opportunity to return while he was alive. He is a celebrated figure, especially because of his written works, today even more so than his paintings, and above all, because of the Prophet. The Prophet, I would say, if you were going to keep poetry books on your nightstand, this should be the first one, because it is simply perfect. Each chapter is educational, even down to the commas. There is a wealth of knowledge distilled there, and it is truly beautiful. So, well, learn a little about the story of the Prophet. As I mentioned to you, it was already written in English in 1923. By then, he spoke it very well, English, of course, after so many years, and it has been translated into 40 languages so far. In other words, in terms of literature, especially poetic prose, which is his specialty, I do not know of a book as popular as this one. You can come in, there is a seat right here in the front. No problem. Please, come in. Anyway, 40 languages. This book has been translated. I find it interesting that there are still so many people in Brazil. When you ask someone if they have read The Prophet, many have never even heard of it. It's a shame, because it is the kind of book that would be truly meaningful. I don't know if you've ever walked into a bookstore and seen those lists. Sometimes they have books titled 100 books you must read before you die. The 100 movies you must watch before you die. Every time I flip through those books, I get the feeling that maybe it's better if I die first. Because the selection is disastrous. I've even thought about making my own list and publishing it. And this would definitely be one of the books I would include.
Is that right? No, it's not.
It's not, as incredible as it may seem. It's just one of those that aren't included. For example, Plato's Republic isn't there, and many others as well. So, the Prophet is a myth. You might say, but isn't it a poem she just mentioned? Yes, but he writes in a completely symbolic way. You can't take what is being said there literally. And this is something very important for you to understand, because mythical language is something else that we are not very accustomed to nowadays. Philosophy works a lot with myth. Aristotle has a book called Poetics, in which he says the following: in myth, the central character is you. The secondary characters are not other people, they are your own internal factors projected outward. It is your anger, your whims, your inconstancy that are projected so that you can see yourself from the outside. Myths are narrating the inner story of humanity. It is not a simple soap opera with ordinary characters. Myths are speaking about what is happening within you. Carl Jung, in his analytical psychology, often said that the structure of dream consciousness, that is, your dreams, is also similar. Have you ever stopped to consider that there is no one in your dream except yourself? The annoying one is you, the kind one is you, the wise one is you. In short, everything there is you. Even those little venomous creatures that sometimes appear are you. In other words, these are aspects of yourself, projected outward so that you can see them, since you are not perceiving them within. This is the structure of dreams. This is a profound insight that Jung offers. The structure of dreams is very similar to the structure of myths. This is what is called human dream consciousness. So, when you encounter this story, there is only one character, Mustafa, who is the prophet. All the others are actually himself. When you look at the story itself, it goes more or less like this. He lived on an island and decided to leave, to go to a city called Orphalese, an imaginary city, where he goes to teach people. But the people there pay no attention to him at all. He has lived in that city for 12 years, and throughout that time, no one pays any attention to him, just the same. The only one who notices him is the priestess of the city, Almitra, who welcomes him warmly. Everyone else completely ignores him. Then, one fine day, after 12 years, he sees a boat appearing on the horizon, with boatmen from his homeland. He says, "Great, this is my chance to return home," as he had been waiting for this opportunity. Here, there is an interesting aspect of human nature. Awareness arises through contrast. No one paid the slightest attention to Al-Mustafa until the moment he decided to leave. Have you ever noticed that? That we only value things once we lose them? In the contrast between having and not having, you recognize the value of what you once had. In the contrast between white and black, I perceive what is white and what is black. If the entire universe were just one of these two colors, I would not be able to perceive it. Human consciousness arises through contrast. So, when the news spreads that Mustafa is leaving, everyone panics. How can that be? We haven't asked him anything. He hasn't taught us anything yet. 12 years. No, hold him back. Let's ask him some questions before he leaves. Then the whole town gathers around him and begins to ask questions. And he begins to answer. That is all the prophet does. Each person comes, asks a question, and he answers that question. The chapters are very short, just 2 or 3 pages, in which he responds to that particular question, and there is always a connection between the person who asks and the nature of the question. Always keeping in mind what I mentioned to you, everyone is him. And 12 is a symbolic cycle. It represents the zodiacal cycle. It is as if he has gone through an entire lifetime and is, in fact, dying. There, he synthesizes all the wisdom he has gathered throughout his entire life. This is like an earthly life, or withdrawing from their means, returning to his spiritual world, which is his island. So, he is demonstrating the wisdom he has synthesized throughout his life. It is, in fact, an internal dialogue. Okay, is everything clear so far? So, today we'll talk about love. I put this little image here simply because consciousness arises through contrast. To create a contrast for you. Because what he is going to talk about has nothing to do with this image. Neither with the little red hearts, nor with the romantic couple. Because, in general, when we talk about love, we have this expectation. It's not that he denies this kind of love. But he is going to speak about a love that first reaches upward, and then descends down here, and it creates this effect of unity among people. Because, in general, philosophers believe that a person must first elevate their capacity to love in order to then form deep bonds with others. If someone forms only horizontal relationships with others, those relationships are very superficial, very fleeting. If a person does not rise, does not elevate their consciousness, does not develop depth, they are not even capable of loving themselves. Truly, genuine and profound feelings are very rare. The kind of love being discussed here is not that one, not the one symbolized by a little heart. A red heart. It is an elevated love, a love that unites a person with their own essence, a union of the human being with the divine. So, this expectation of romantic love is not something that is denied, but it is approached in a much deeper way. In fact, everything, my friends, if you read the Prophet, just last week I was talking about freedom. Our expectation is one thing, but Gibran presents something entirely different. It's almost as if he teaches you to read all over again. You think a word means this or that. That is truly fascinating. It is, let's say, profoundly unconventional compared to the way we tend to empty words of their true meaning. And love is one of the most emptied words there are, isn't it? One of the most trivialized words, to the point that nowadays it's almost out of fashion. When you say I love you, no one really believes it anymore. Isn't that right? So, let's embark on our journey to explore love. It's brief, a rather short chapter, so this won't be a long talk. And finally, you're welcome to ask your questions if anything remains unclear. So, the dialogue begins with Almitra, the priestess I mentioned to you earlier. She approaches him and asks, "Speak to us of love." Then, he lifted his head and carefully looked at the people. And a profound silence fell over them. And with a powerful voice, he spoke. Now, you might be thinking, is she really going to comment only on this part? Yes, I will. But he hasn't even said anything yet. True, but there is already something to reflect on here. Because notice, if I'm telling you that all of this is happening within him, isn't there a certain moment, because we reach a higher level of consciousness, of deep reflection? Imagine if your entire personality, all the voices within you, fell silent to listen to this moment of profound awareness. Does this generally happen? Let me try to explain this to you more clearly. At this moment, we have a denser, more concrete structure, which traditions refer to as the personality, and it has a particular trait. Nothing within it stays quiet for even a minute, unless it is very well trained. Does your physical body ever stop making demands? It never stops for a minute, does it? If it's not feeling hot, it's feeling cold, it's uncomfortable in this chair, then it feels hungry, then it feels thirsty, then it fidgets. It is constantly generating noise. Do your emotions ever stay still? I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm curious, I'm anxious, in this, in that. They never stop. Does your mind ever stop? Look, our mind is truly remarkable. It chatters all the time. Blah, 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 blah. At this moment, is any mind truly silent? We had a teacher, Professor Michel Echenique, who has since passed away, who used to joke with us and say that our mind is always chattering. So much so that we step into the shower and don't even feel the water. That's true. Blah, 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 blah. It never stops for a single minute. Imagine if you were truly within yourself, because all of us, as a premise, as a principle, possess a deeper inner life, a capacity for higher reflections on the meaning of life. Do these voices ever quiet down so you can listen to them? They don't quiet down. So, when that drop of reflection falls amidst all this noise, you can't even recognize it. We end up spending our entire lives on the surface. There is a very beautiful book called The Voice of the Silence, which is a book that transcribes the Tibetan tradition, that is, Tibetan philosophy, and it speaks precisely about this. It seems like a paradox, doesn't it? The voice of the silence. But it is the voice of the silent speaker, which is your conscience at its highest, most human, most essential point, trying to speak to you. And it cannot, because nothing within you quiets down. This is a basic self-control that we were never taught to have, because we thought it wasn't necessary. Life has taught us, more or less in quotation marks, to control the physical body. But beyond that, nothing more. Have you ever stopped to think about the advantages that this reasonable control over our physical body gives us? Once, when I was here, I was discussing this with some people, including those who were present, who said, well, if I want to go to the sink, my legs take me there. If I want to go to the television, my legs take me there. But what if I didn't have control over my legs? I would say, legs to the sink, and they would go to the table. Legs to the sink, and they would go to the window. How would I manage to get to that sink? I would have to grab onto the floor, hold onto things. Have you ever imagined the effort it would take to do something so small? Now imagine telling your emotions, feel this way, because it is noble, just, and good. Do they obey? Or telling your mind, think about this, because I need to study it, I need to focus, I need to learn. Do they obey? Have you ever imagined having reasonable control over your emotions and your mind, just as you control your legs when you walk? What kind of potential would that give you? And beyond having an extraordinary capacity for building, you would also hear the voice of silence, because all these parts of you would become quiet. And you would be able to hear something higher. Do you realize that he achieved this by the end of his life? Because when he is about to speak, what happens? All those around him who are listening represent those little voices of what we call the personality. The body with its whims, the emotions with their instabilities, the mind with its endless chatter. Be quiet, he is going to speak. Your essence, what traditions call the higher self, is about to speak. Let us listen. Do you realize that this is a reasonable amount of self-control, actually, more than reasonable? It gives you the opportunity to have an inner life. This is a person who has an internal dialogue, who possesses an inner life, who has depth. Therefore, they are capable of developing deep relationships. This is already a good start for anyone who wishes to love. Because if someone is superficial with themselves, do you think they will be deep with anyone else? Everything about them will be superficial. So, as I mentioned to you, this beginning already deserves a bit of reflection. Then he begins. When love calls you, follow it. Even though its paths are arduous and steep. Here, the imagery is very fitting. Its paths are arduous and steep. Why is that? Love, in the classical sense, is defined as the pursuit of that which you lack in order to be complete as a human being. Therefore, to love means to become increasingly human. Plato has a very famous saying in which he states, the best thing you can do for the people you love is to grow as a human being. Because only then can you truly offer them something meaningful. Do you understand this? The best thing is not to cling to them, nor to give them material things. For them, it is to grow as a human being. That way, you can truly offer them something. Growth is vertical, it is steep. There is effort involved. It is arduous. Some things must be left behind. I don't know if you have ever seen the image. There, we have a statue of Mary. In fact, there is even a statue that depicts Ares, who is the god of war, together with the goddess Aphrodite, or Venus, who is the goddess of love. Don't you find this relationship in mythology somewhat amusing? Isn't it odd, love together with war? In practice, within ourselves, that is exactly how it is. It is a battle to leave things behind and to grow, so that we can truly love. Love is the result of overcoming certain weaknesses, certain flaws, and conquering new territories, developing the capacity for fraternity, understanding, and depth. Do you see what I mean? Love and war walk hand in hand. You must have triumphed over something in order to rise to a new level of generosity, fraternity, and selflessness that allows you to love ever more truly. So, some things are left behind along the way. It is a difficult, steep path. We are used to seeing that cherub with rosy cheeks, little wings, and a tiny arrow. How sweet and cute that is. And suddenly, Gibran brings us a love that is strong, demanding, and tough. It practically rebuilds you. He actually says this, as you'll see. Again, we think, wait, I didn't expect this. I was expecting something sweet and innocent. Well, that's not Gibran. If that's what you want, look for another author. This is not the kind of arrows he is presenting here, the one you are looking for. You are searching for the Valentine's Day Cupid. Isn't that right? With those little red hearts. The last time I was here, I told you that those little red hearts are a symbol. Do you remember of what? Of passion, and not of love. It's a joke I always make with people. Why? It goes up and down, it falls and starts all over again. Isn't that so? Yes, but that's passion. Perfect, right? But not love. So, this love that Gibran is talking about is tough, it's arduous, it's steep, it demands a lot from you. And he will continue. It truly frightens those who wish to experience love. For those who are not expecting this kind of definition. And when his wings enfold you, embrace him. Even though the sword hidden among his feathers may wound you. In other words, he will refine you, removing everything that is unnecessary. He will make you lighter and lighter. He will be speaking about this the entire time. In other words, when he invites you to the ascensional self, he will require you to become lighter, so that you can soar together with him. Therefore, there are certain things you will have to leave behind. It is as if you imagine yourself climbing a mountain with a very heavy backpack on your shoulders. And then I say to you, no, leave that pillow behind, leave that, whatever it is you were going to take. No, without this, I won't go up. I absolutely won't climb without it. Oh no, because so-and-so gave this to me, I can't let it go. All right then, let's start climbing. After you've climbed a good way up the mountain, when you look around and start to appreciate seeing things from above, breathing the thinner air, you'll realize, well, I don't really need this so much, because to keep climbing, I need to be lighter. So, this can stay here. Isn't that right? You start emptying your backpack as you begin to enjoy the climb. Is love something like this? In order for you to rise higher, you must become purer. Some things have to be left behind. But further on, he will go into more and more detail, because that's what this is about. The entire chapter is about this. How love is demanding. And it will gradually strip you down, purify you, so that you can soar with it. You want it, that's what it is. It doesn't give you the option to choose the destination, the path. The path belongs to it. Either you go or you stay. Is that right? And when it speaks to you, believe in it. Even if its voice may shake your dreams, like the north wind devastates the garden. I always mention something very interesting that fits perfectly with this beautiful passage from Gibran, which is the medieval tradition. The medieval alchemists, those whom we thought spent their time in laboratories trying to turn lead into gold, actually, deep down, wanted to transform the lead of ignorance into the gold of wisdom. And they had an entire symbolism to address this, which was the work in black, the work in white, and the work in red. The work in black is the recognition of these inner hells, the act of seeing oneself. The work in white is purification, and the work in red is ascension, and this here is exactly that, the work in black. In other words, love will make everything that is artificial, everything that is merely attached to you, be swept away. That which is not real, you will let fall to the ground, because it wants you. It does not want your fantasies, it does not want your masks, and sometimes this is very hard, so you have to recognize what you truly are. This is the etymology, we'll also see this later on, of the word intelligence. Did you know where the word intelligence comes from? Intelliger, to choose among. To choose among the things that are not, that which truly is, and, above all, to choose among all that you are not, who you truly are. To find yourself amidst all the masks. To discover your true self. Love will demand this from you, and this is difficult because we are deeply identified with our fantasies. In fact, let me share something with you, just keep it between us. Generally, we believe in our own masks more than others do. People sometimes pretend to believe in our masks just to manipulate us. But they can see, at times, that these are just masks. A child can sense when we are pretending. Have you never noticed that? Don't you notice this in others? Someone thinks they are something, and you know they are not. To maintain a good relationship, you pretend to believe it. Isn't that so? How often has this happened? But you know it isn't true. You can sense the gap between the mask and reality, but the person does not see it. They do not see it. I used to joke and say that sometimes even the doorman of our building knows us better than we know ourselves. One day, a student of mine came to me jokingly and said he had already found the key to self-knowledge. He was going to disguise himself as someone else and have a conversation with his building's doorman. Because, honestly, it would be quite amusing. So, love will require that you truly want to see yourself. Know who you are. And from there, begin to build the person you wish to become. I want to be someone who truly loves. Friends, this is not a joke. According to Buddhist tradition, a single drop of true love justifies an entire human existence. It is such a profound bond between human beings that it is as if it restores unity within diversity. Most of the things we have are emotions. They are very fragile bonds. True love, as many say, even Plato himself speaks about this. It is either eternal or it is not love. There are bonds that are truly profound. Do you realize how demanding this is? It will require you to recognize where you are and to truly desire to reach true love. Because this is the equation of identity. Do you understand? What do you need to do to get somewhere? Knowing where you want to go is obvious, but you also need to know where you are right now. I got lost here in Aguas Claras. This is just a hypothetical situation, okay? Carla, this never actually happened. I got lost here in Aguas Claras. I called Carla. Carla, in Lost. She would find it very strange, because she knows I'm usually very good with directions. What is she going to ask me in order to help me get here? Where are you? And I say, I don't know. How is she going to help me then? What do I need to know in order to get here? Where I want to go and where I am. Do you see? So, love blows. Blows so that your masks fall away and you can truly know where you are. Since you want to go with it, the first thing you need to know is where you are. Love will blow through and strip away all your masks, all your disguises. And it blows hard, just like that tornado we had here. It blows with great force. It tears off all our masks. 4. Even when love crowns you. It also crucifies you, even though it is for your growth. It also, in fact, prunes you. Here. There are many elements between the lines, many elements. Love crowns you. It lifts you to the highest point your consciousness has ever reached. It enables you to love in ways that are ever deeper, broader, and more genuine. But it also crucifies you. Why is that? Because you are accustomed to a horizontal dimension. This refers to the limitation, the enslavement of human feelings, which, in truth, are not even true feelings. What is a horizontal relationship? It is a give and take. Everything you do is done with the expectation of something in return. Plato said that this is a mediocre level of emotional connection. It is not true love. True love is vertical. It is one way. It expects nothing but the well-being of the beloved. It is not a steep ascent. It is vertical. Before, you only had this. Love adds this to you. Even when it crowns you, it also crucifies you. In general, our relationships, with few exceptions, are very horizontal. Even between a boyfriend and girlfriend, he gives her a kiss, and if she doesn't kiss him back, he already feels wronged. He gave a kiss and got nothing in return. Look at what I did for you. When someone says this, what are they really saying? You owe me. They're presenting the bill. Do you see how this is horizontal? It is horizontal. True love is vertical. It is fulfilled simply in the well-being of the beloved. It does not expect anything in return. So, the vertical aspect that counterbalances this horizontal one, it crucifies you. Even though it is for your growth, it also prunes you, because everything that is weighing you down, it has to be cut away. Everything that was in your backpack, you have to leave behind. Have you ever heard how wine is produced? Good wines, not those more common ones. Good wine from those European vineyards. Have you ever heard about it? I find it curious that a characteristic of this love we must develop for knowledge, where there is a sign of intelligence, beauty, harmony, and love, even if it is not directly related to our daily routine, is something truly interesting. I don't know if you have noticed this, but it is a trait of the philosopher. This has nothing to do with beekeeping. You might not even like honey, but when you see the refinement with which bees work, don't you stop to watch? Wherever there is will, love, and intelligence, it is said that it interests the wise as if it were a trace of the divine. It is something that draws their attention and makes them stop to observe. In other words, I can't stand wine of any kind, but I found this story very interesting when I saw how a good wine is produced. You know that they take a small vine and cut off all the lower branches, leaving only the one that reaches the top, so that all the strength of the plant is concentrated up there. And as the sap travels this path, it becomes more refined. That's how you get the best fruit. One of the shortcomings of countries without a winemaking tradition is precisely this. They don't want to waste the grapes from the lower branches. As a result, you end up with grapes that have little flavor and low quality. They cut everything off, leaving only the fruit at the very top. This way, all the plant's strength is concentrated in what is most elevated. Do you realize that, in a certain way, love is doing the same with us? It is pruning away everything that is inferior so that you can direct all your energy toward the heavens. That which is most noble within you, which, from there, can once again radiate out to others, creating deep relationships. Why do you think that marriage, in most of the traditions we know, is a religious ceremony, and not simply a civil contract? It could be, right? Because it has always been considered, in all these traditions, that people come together around something higher, something sacred. Around the profane, people become divided. Union must be formed around something greater, as if it were a star that both look toward. If there is nothing higher, people do not unite. Around material things, people become divided. Around the spiritual, around values and virtues, people unite. So, first it rises above, and then it pours back down upon all the children. These same medieval alchemists also had the habit of speaking about this. Love, they would say, it is not a drink that is human. It is a nectar of the gods. And therefore, you cannot manufacture love. You only need to craft the chalice. And then, if they look down and say that, well, this is it, we'll fill your chalice. They pour in the sacred wine. That is wonderful. Everything is just right. You have built yourself with nobility, with values, to be a well-crafted chalice, so they can pour in the wine. Everything is just fine. But do you know what they call this blessed wine? Castellan. And Castellan was the universal solvent. In other words, it was a liquid that, wherever you placed it, it would dissolve everything. There was no substance capable of resisting it. But then, won't it dissolve the chalice that I worked so hard to build? Yes, it will. And if it doesn't dissolve, you can refuse it, because it's counterfeit Castellan. Because if it's real, it's genuine. That chalice you worked so hard to build, when it is poured in, it will dissolve. Do you know why? Because you can love through a human being, through a task, but if that love is genuine, it will not accept limits. And if I truly love this person, I'll love humanity as a whole, life as a whole, even more. It will spread, it will not accept boundaries. If it remains confined, if it makes you more selfish, we'll even discuss a beautiful phrase about this later on, then it is not genuine, it is not true love. Do you understand? It prunes you, guiding you toward what is best and most noble within you, removing everything that is not truly human, everything that is not a grape of good quality. Even when it rises up to you and gently caresses your most tender branches, which tremble in the sunlight, it also slowly descends to your roots and shakes your connection to the earth. Don't you find the situation of the tree dramatic? Because life is pulling it upward while its roots hold it firmly to the ground. This must be an internal struggle. Love creates this struggle within a person because it pulls them upward while the roots keep them stuck to the ground. It will make you question these roots, your foundations, what you rely on to interact with the world. It will not accept you on its journey if you hold fundamentally selfish attitudes and are unwilling to question them. If your attitudes are fundamentally about projecting your own personality, about winning over others instead of winning with them. If you seek only personal fulfillment and not to be a positive force in someone else's life, love will not accept that kind of root. It will challenge your foundations. Love is very demanding with the travelers who embark on the ill journey. So, we will also talk more about this later on. Love requires that a person rebuild themselves at their very core. It is not easy to love. There is a moral foundation, a foundation of maturity, a very solid human foundation. So, love will begin to question all your roots, the way you interact with the world, your attitude toward life, toward yourself, toward others, and the principles that guide your life. If you truly want to love, you will have to revisit all of these. In fact, let me tell you something, you will have to revisit everything. One of the things that love demands is that you rebuild yourself on new foundations. It is almost like a rebirth on different foundations, on a new level. You see, growth is exactly that, being born on a new level, like climbing a staircase. So, one of the things love will do is question your roots, shake your connection to the ground. And even more powerfully, look at what it says next. Like sheaves of wheat, it gathers you unto itself. It harvests you to strip you bare. It winnows you to free you from impurities. It grinds you until you are white. Very beautiful. Let me just turn the page so this thought can be complete. It kneads you patiently and thoroughly until you are soft and pliable, and then delivers you, with great care, to its sacred fire, so that you may become sacred bread for the sacred and holy feast of God. How beautiful, isn't it? What an inspired message. But what does it mean? What does it truly mean? Like sheaves of wheat, they gather themselves together. The first thing that love demands is unity. It is the overcoming of what that Tibetan tradition I mentioned to you earlier calls the heresy of separateness, which, in plain language, is selfishness. It is believing that fulfillment is about others and not about being together. It is failing to seek unity as the purpose of life. The first thing it will do is bring you together with itself, to unite you with the divine, because love is a divine being, to help you discover the feeling of unity. And then, what will it do with you? It reaps you to lay you bare. We have already seen this. It will strip away all your layers, all your masks. It will leave you pure. It sifts you to free you from impurities. Remember intelligence? It is intelliger. It will remove everything that is not truly you. It will leave only you, ever more pure, ever barer. It softens you until you become light. That is, it purifies exactly what comes after the work in black, which is to see. It is to purify, to remove you from among all those impurities. What else will it do? To you? It kneads you until you become malleable. It will demand from you a flexibility to rebuild yourself in another form. Do you understand this? Not to be attached to that form we are used to seeing in the mirror, to our habits, to our vices, to our way of interacting with life. To be willing to rebuild oneself, to be the architect of your own destiny. I often joke with my students that our current society is addicted to the Gabriella, clove, and cinnamon syndrome. Do you know the little song? I was born this way, I grew up this way, I am really this way, I will always be this way. That won't work. Love will not carry Gabriella, clove, and cinnamon. It requires you to disidentify from these casts that you see in the mirror today. You are not that. You are that destiny toward which you aspire to live, out there on the horizon. I shared with those who were here the last time I came that there is a passage from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Imagine the complicated book. This book has a passage that says the following: "O disciple, your inner name is on the horizon." I used to find this kind of thing enigmatic. The teacher looks at the horizon and sees nothing written there. How can it be that your inner name is on the horizon? Your inner name is in your goal, up there, high above. That is you. What you are right now is not who you truly are. Your boldest, noblest dreams, that is who you are. And to evolve is to seek to grow in that direction. It means shedding the layers, everything that prevents you from moving toward that path. So, love requires you to be adaptable, to be willing to rebuild yourself. Do not see yourself as a finished product, as a fixed being. Be willing to rebuild yourself. Be willing to undertake the work of building yourself. For the great work of human life, the great work of humanity, is the construction of the human being himself, even though today, we often do not consider this. We tend to think that building houses, computers, cars, airplanes, that these are the great works, don't we? But the true great work of humanity is the building of the human being. Curiously enough, even though this is not usually on our list of interests. What are you meant to become? Sacred bread, so that you may become, pardon me, consecrated for the sacred feast of God. Sacred means the function of giving meaning. When each thing finds its identity within the whole, it fits together like a piece of a puzzle. And then it is as if it were the great feast of God, where each thing fulfills the role that is meant for it. Do you understand this? Plants, when they bloom in spring, are sacred. They do exactly what nature expects from a plant. Animals, when they strive to survive and to reproduce, are sacred. They do exactly what is expected of an animal. The sun, when it rises and when it sets, this is an old saying, very beautiful. The sun at sunrise and at sunset. And the flowers blooming in spring are beautiful. A man, when he becomes truly human, is also sacred and is as beautiful as a flower blooming in spring and the sun rising and setting. Because he is a being who has found his place within the sacred celebration of God. He has found his identity. When you find your identity, everything fits together. It is the great puzzle of God. Unity. Everything comes into harmony. We talk a lot, and I don't think it's unfair or wrong. I believe it is right for us to be concerned about the animals we are driving to extinction through our predatory stance toward nature. I think it is just for us to care about this. But what we fail to realize is that the being most at risk of extinction is the human being. And it is this extinction that is causing all the other extinctions. Do you see? A human being in the purest human condition, with values, with virtues, with wisdom. Do you think there are many like that? Do you think that if there were, any animal would be at risk of extinction? Do you realize that the root cause lies here? The cause is right here. We are an animal. A being, forgive me, not an animal, but a being in grave danger of extinction. As true human beings, in the fullest sense. All these things love will do for you, until you come to know the secrets of your own heart. And with that knowledge, you become a fragment of the heart of life. We were just talking a bit about this, weren't we? A small piece of the puzzle. And even more than that. Gibran, as you may recall, comes from Lebanon and is rooted in a Middle Eastern tradition, which is deeply connected to both Eastern and Western philosophical traditions. He is a philosopher. What he is expressing here is truly profound. Every time I come here, I share the same little story. It is one of the stories I tell most often in all my lectures, and it will continue to be, because it is so valuable. So, for those who already know it, forgive me for telling it once again. It is a beautiful Indian story that speaks about the evolution of a human being, comparing it to a small pearl on a necklace. Imagine it as if it were a necklace, perhaps made of acrylic. Several little acrylic beads, with a nylon thread running through the middle. Can you imagine each of these little stones, these beads on the necklace, as if it were a conscious and intelligent being, and imagine its story? Picture this. How does the story of the little pearl begin? At first, it only looks outward, at its own surface, and competes with the others. Look at me, I'm the brightest and roundest bead on this necklace, I'm the best. Everyone only looks at me on this necklace, and she spends a long time playing this game. Until, at a certain point, she gets exhausted, she finds it tiring. And she begins to feel the need to know herself more deeply. But the thing is, her awareness is only used to recognizing what she is on the surface. In other words, acrylic. When she looks inside, what passes through there is not acrylic, so she sees nothing. She feels empty. She feels that inner emptiness, that anguish, and she begins to search. And she searches, searches, and searches. One day, after searching so much, she will refine her vision. Because she wants to see, she will eventually see and recognize that little piece of nylon that passes through her. She will say, I have found my essence. Look, this is my essence. This is what I am. Then she will look at the other little pearls and say, they must all be like this too. They live for appearances, but they have an essence they need to find. And she will feel very fulfilled by this. But is this the end of the little pearl story? No. Do you know when it is the end? It is when she discovers that the little piece of thread that runs through her, and through all the other little pearls, are many? No, it is just one. It is a single thread that runs through all the pearls in the universe. The essence of all beings is one. Can you imagine that? And then, at a certain moment, love will guide you, and it knows exactly where to go. That is where it wants to take you, to help you perceive your own essence and recognize unity. Do you think that, after returning your awareness here, there would still be room for selfishness, for separation, for violence? Once you have seen this, you realize that these things are the result of ignorance and selfishness. Love wants to lead you there, so you can see and realize this truth. Afterwards, it lets you return to the world to share the good news, to try to spread this message, but its true intention is to lead you there. Do you understand? Become, until you know the secrets of your own heart, and with that knowledge, become a fragment of the heart of life itself. What do you think he is trying to say? Is it just wordplay? Is it just a figure of speech? It is not. There is something very profound and philosophical behind this. But if, out of fear, you seek only the peace of love and the pleasure of love, then it is truly better that you hide your nakedness and distance yourselves from love, retreating to a world without seasons, where you'll go, but not with all your laughter, and you will weep, but not with all your tears. Do you understand? It is better that you put on a mask, hide your purity, your nakedness, and go live a half love, you know? Because you want love as entertainment and not as a path to self-improvement. Who can honestly say they prefer growth over comfort? If you only seek the comfort and entertainment of love, you will have only half of love, half of life, and you will become half a human being. You will refuse what is most noble that love has to offer you, settling for nothing more than its outer shell. Only that superficial taste of the shell. While you could rise and go with it, you choose instead to walk the earth and pick up the scraps that fall to the ground. Love is not entertainment. Love is self-improvement, even though it also brings pleasure. But that is not the core, the heart of love. At the heart of love lies the building of your own heart, the shaping of yourself as a human being. Love only gives if, and it takes nothing except from itself. Love neither possesses nor is possessed, for love is sufficient unto itself. We were just speaking about this when we talked about the crucifixion. True love, vertical love, is self-sufficient. What does love need? It needs only the well-being of the beloved. It only needs the certainty that it is loving. It does not require anything in return. If it needs something in return, then it is an investment tainted by selfishness. Love fulfills itself within itself. It finds fulfillment in loving, in pouring out, in offering. Whether it is accepted or not, how much is received, or even if it is received at all, well, I have fulfilled my role. I opened the door. How many chose to walk through it? That depends on each individual. I find fulfillment in loving, in giving, without expecting anything in return. When you expect something in return, it means you have interests, you have selfishness. You act for that reason, and not for love itself. Love is sufficient unto itself. There is, in fact, a very beautiful poem that says the greatest reward for one who loves is precisely the act of loving itself. Nothing else is needed. Love is self-sufficient and complete in itself. When you love, it is said, you should not say, God is in my heart, but rather, am in the heart of God. And do not think that you can alter the course of love, for love, if it finds you worthy, will direct your path. In other words, you cannot get into the vehicle and say, take me to this or that place. No, it only goes to one destination. This first part of the phrase is very beautiful. That is, if God is in my heart, then God is a utility that came here to serve me. No, the center is God, and I am here to serve that. Plato would say that this is the dividing line of human love. This is a complex idea, and it alone could be the subject of an entire lecture. It happens when you stop looking at things and asking, what use is this to me? And instead, you begin to look at things and ask, how can I serve this? The center is the law of the universe, it is justice, it is goodness. And you place yourself in service to that. Otherwise, you are tainted by selfishness, and what you feel will not be true love. It will be utilitarianism, self-interest, neediness, a whole host of other things. But true love is very demanding. It will not serve. It will not serve the projections and the little theater of your personality, which wants to be the most perfect bead on this necklace. Love has more important things to do. It works for the greater thread, and not for the projection of any particular bead. It has no interest in that. For what purpose? Who benefits from that? Not even you. Not even you. In fact, you are the one most harmed by it. And do not think that you can alter the course of love. Remember when I spoke to you about that phrase I promised? Just a moment ago? When we were talking about the chalice that dissolves? There is a Roman thinker named Cicero who says the following: if you love and become more altruistic, more noble, kinder, more attentive to the suffering of humanity, then you truly love. If you love and become more selfish, more isolated, more focused only on your own interests, then you do not love, and nor does anyone who acts in this way. Do you understand this? Love has a single direction. It makes you more human. If it is making you worse, be careful. That is not love. Counterfeit wine, you can return it. It is not love. By your deeds, I will know you. If we judge people by their actions, why not do the same with our feelings? Those couples who once had some work, some interest in something metaphysical, suddenly become consumed by a passion that isolates them from everything else. There's that feeling, look, be careful. This is not the expected outcome of a true feeling. If it were genuine, you should be a better human being because of it. You should be more interested in the whole, in humanity, and in your own deeper self. At least, that's how it was with Kahlil Gibran and Mary Haskell. Kahlil Gibran, after Mary Haskell, was able to write The Prophet. Your love gives me wings. You are clipping your own wings. Be careful. Remember, by your deeds, you shall be known. It wasn't I who said this. It was someone who truly knew what they were saying. Far more than I do, certainly. Love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. But if you love and must have desires, let these be your desires. Now, he will go on to list the desires that are fitting within true love. But first, understand this initial statement. Love has no other desire than to fill that missing part, so that it may become true love. To fill that missing part so that you may become a true human being. To fill that missing part so that your heart may become a truly human heart. In other words, to ensure that you Socratic your life and take your rightful place in the human universe. Be a complete human being, fulfill what nature expects of you. Love has no other desire than to be love, with a capital L. It desires nothing outside of itself. Everything it seeks is already within. And everything else will be given as an addition. However, if you still feel a strong need to have desires, he will offer some good suggestions. If you still find yourself in need of desires, let these be your desires. To merge and be like a gentle stream that softly flows and sings its melody to the night. To know the deep pain of affection in its fullness. To be wounded by your own understanding of love. And to bleed by your own will with joy. Mysterious, isn't it? And beautiful. To merge and be like a stream that flows and sings its melody to the night. Where do streams and rivers all flow to? To the sea. All differentiated beings flow toward unity. Like a drop of water that runs to the ocean. Now, it flows with all goodwill, but it still does not know very well. It does not clearly visualize, for a stream, for a brook. It is difficult to imagine what the ocean truly is, but the night, full of stars, announces to it this mystery, which is its destiny. and it loves the mystery and runs joyfully, singing to the night. Toward this mystery, I do not know where I'm going, but I know it is in the direction of goodness. I feel this, and I run toward unity. And the night always represents this idea of the sacred, star-filled mystery that marks our destiny, our fulfillment. Each one is what they are in their deepest essence. The greatest happiness of beings lies in being what they were created to be, that which nature expects from them. In other words, happiness is connected to identity. The streams are happy as they run toward the sea, and human beings as they run toward wisdom, toward values, virtues, and wisdom. To know the pain of affection in excess, to be wounded by your own understanding of love, and to bleed by your own will. With joy, just imagine that. And I hope that we can increasingly understand what he is trying to express about love. Doesn't it seem that our heart, the space we have set aside for this feeling, keeps getting smaller and smaller? And you need to expand this heart? And doesn't that hurt? It's as if you were bleeding with joy. There is a beautiful passage from one of the letters that Mary Haskell wrote to Kahlil Gibran, in which she says the following: "My love for you could not fit in my heart. So I had to borrow God's heart just to love you through it. It could no longer fit, so my heart had to burst. So, in order to keep loving you as you deserve and ought to be loved, I borrowed the heart of God." Do you understand what that means? Can you imagine? It's impossible. It's an expansion. It seems as if our heart is small. It's painful, but at the same time, there is this feeling of glory, of moving ever closer to what is expected of me as a human being. To love through my divine heart, so that this love becomes ever more true and profound bonds, uniting human beings and restoring unity within diversity. To awaken at dawn with a gentle heart full of wings, and give thanks for another day of love. To rest at midday and meditate on the ecstasy of love, simply to continue this reflection, and to return home at night with gratitude. And then to fall asleep with a prayer to the beloved in your heart and a song of praise on your lips. Do you understand what he is trying to say here? All your moments, waking, at midday, each one illuminated by the idea of love. It is the sanctification of life. It is the sanctification of time. The sacred is the function of giving meaning. There was a thinker from the last century, Sri Ram, who used to say the following: "You must truly lose your heart every day and spend your entire day searching for your heart. And in doing so, you will discover that your heart is the heart of all things." In other words, make your day about this. The things you have to do are means. The end is to find your heart. In things. It is everywhere. You notice that we have this habit of taking the power of our heart, which is 360 degrees, meant to radiate in all directions, and focusing it on a single degree, a single person. What happens when you take a great power of light and concentrate it on just 1 degree? What is born from that? A laser beam. Do you know what it does? It overwhelms the poor soul. Because it is a power that was meant to love humanity. But it was poured out selfishly onto just one person, an expectation that no one, by themselves, can ever fulfill. And this creates frustration and dependency, which leads to despair. But if I start placing my heart in all things, wouldn't my feelings become more natural, more wholesome? It becomes very difficult for someone to feel needy in this way. Throughout my Socratic, I wake at dawn with my heart uplifted by the opportunity for another day of love. Along the way, just look at how much I have already loved. I walk home, grateful. And I fall asleep peacefully. I sleep the sleep of the just, because I fulfilled my day. I did what was mine to do. I loved. Therefore, I had a day worthy of a human being. Whoever follows my path will say, "A human being passed through here. He loved." And later, when I stand before death, whoever traces the path of my life will say, "This was the life of a human being. He spread love wherever he went. He sought unity. He sought the heart of all things." Why? Because he had the ability to find his own heart, and, by extension, he was also able to find the heart of every person. In the end, we will not possess things. Even these, we will leave behind here. What we truly have is the heart of all the things we were able to win over, starting with our own. Have you ever stopped to think about this? This idea of the heart, which we sometimes misunderstand so deeply, was even explored by Machado de Assis in his writings. We tend to think that the heart is just this muscle inside our chest. On one occasion, I was reading a passage from Eastern philosophy and found it truly beautiful. It said that this great being who manifests in the universe is very difficult to grasp, to know what its attributes are, because everything is within it. It is the one. So, any attribute you try to assign to it, you end up limiting it. Therefore, it is difficult to imagine, with our limited human minds, this great being that is behind the universe. But there is one thing you can know: it manifests and then withdraws. It manifests and then withdraws. Doesn't that resemble the systole and diastole of a heart? In other words, it is a great heart. Could it be that this heart is connected to the heart that is your spiritual essence? And is it not also related to this physical heart within you? Most likely, all hearts belong to the same family. They are aligned. So much so that our own heart aches when we violate the protocols of life, when we betray our principles. And many times, we don't know how to communicate with it. We don't know how to understand this pain. Most likely, all the hearts in the universe are connected. And if you make space for this, all of them communicate as if in a great sacred corridor. Do you understand this? Once you reach up there, you can come down among people and have deep and genuine relationships. It no longer matters much when all of this passes away and all these appearances fade. If you have won the heart of things, you have these things permanently connected to your own heart. This is the idea of love that he wants to convey. In other words, it doesn't have much to do with the little red heart, nor with the romantic love of our times. But do you see that it encompasses everything? It encompasses everything deeply. A truly human love. This is what Gibran proposes. As I mentioned to you, every chapter of the Prophet is a kind of literacy in a philosophical language, because nothing is as you expect. And it is a journey that he invites us to take. It is a thin book. He actually invites us on a journey. It is captivating. The journey of human consciousness. In the process of self-knowledge, which is the essence of life. Or at least it should be. I repeat to you, the main and fundamental work of a human being is the construction of oneself. This is an instruction manual. Very good, very philosophical. Because that is what philosophy is. As Carla said at the beginning, philosophy is the art of loving wisdom and discovering the means that have been handed down to us throughout history to achieve the tales of the soul's conquest of evil. Philosophy has always been, at its core, the art of living as human beings. And, as she mentioned, this is just a small sample of what we propose as learning. Literacy in the art of living as human beings. Well, that's all. I now open the floor for questions.